Hello, my little junebugs and rosebuds. Today I'm using my new acrylic gouache and Sta-Wet palette to paint a shimmering rainbow in honor of Pride Month. This is a little bit of a painting process video and also a little bit of a review of the gouache and the palette, so I hope you'll get a tasty treat and your art supplies and join me. I recently started testing acrylic gouache as an underlayer in my regular gouache paintings, and I found that the acrylic gouache dries out very quickly, and that meant that I was wasting a lot of paint, so I started looking into getting this Sta-Wet palette. It comes with the traditional Sta-Wet palette setup that you see here, with the sponge that fits inside the airtight plastic container, and the palette paper to mix paint on. It also comes with this glass palette that's sort of a mid-tone gray that fits inside the airtight container as well, and that's what I ended up using this time. It also came with this perfect little piece of cardboard, which is what I ended up using as my canvas for this painting. I came across James Gurney's YouTube channel a little while back, which I'm sure if you're interested in painting you've come across, but if you haven't and I get to recommend it to you, I highly recommend it. He talks a lot about technique and color theory and light and all sorts of interesting art things, and he does paint a lot in gouache, and I was intrigued by his gouache technique where he uses a layer of, I think, casein paint underneath his gouache as an underlayer, that because it doesn't lift up and it doesn't reactivate. So I decided to get some acrylic gouache instead of casein, since I've used acrylic paint before and I haven't used casein paint before, and acrylic paint also has the properties that I needed, especially acrylic gouache. It dries down matte and it doesn't reactivate with water, so it seemed like it would be easiest to transition to that. I did make a short where I swatched all of this acrylic gouache when I first got it, and I've used them a little bit since then. Aside from the fact that they dry out so quickly, I've really liked them. The colors are vibrant and lovely, and there's a couple of more unusual colors in this set, like the very bright pink, which I really love, and they're really easy to use as long as you remember that they won't reactivate like regular gouache. Regular gouache is still my favorite, but I like having the option to put down an underpainting that won't budge after it dries down. This painting, I decided I just wanted to use the acrylic gouache since I was testing the Sta-Wet palette for the first time, so I wanted to use a paint that would challenge it a little to see if it stayed wet. as for this Sta-Wet palette, this was my very first use of it, and so far I've really liked it. As you can see, I did close it up and walk away from it, and that wasn't the only time that I did that during this painting process, and it did indeed keep my paint wet. I haven't used the sponge and paper yet, but I might try it with my regular gouache before trying it out with the acrylic gouache. One thing I really love about using a glass palette in general, not just this one, is how easy it is to clean acrylic paint off of them. I took exactly one painting class in college, which is where I learned about using glass palettes for acrylic paint. They're so easy to clean. Sometimes you can just peel off the acrylic paint in big patches, which is, of course, very satisfying, but when that doesn't work, all you need to do is rinse the palette with water and then scrape off the paint. I actually cleaned this palette, as you can see, just by misting it with water and wiping the dried paint off with just a paper towel. So I highly recommend a glass palette if you are using any kind of acrylic paint in general. I have definitely ruined a lot of plastic palettes with dried acrylic paint over the years before I took that class. This one in particular has a mid-tone gray backing too, which is supposed to be very helpful for color mixing. I can't say that I noticed any difference this time, but it's the first time I used it, so maybe I will notice as time goes on. knew I wanted to do a piece for Pride Month, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. A rainbow seems pretty obvious, of course, but since I tend to paint lots of skies and nature, it also just made sense for me. One of my very favorite things to see in nature, something that just makes my heart really happy, is when there's been a storm, but the sun is breaking through the clouds on one side of the sky, and then the other side of the sky is still very dark and clouded. The bright sunlight shining off trees or buildings, or sometimes even rainbows, contrasted with the dark, stormy sky is just so beautiful. Thinking about how dark the world in general is right now, but how full of light and color we can make each other's lives through celebration and love and becoming ourselves, seem to fit with this piece. And of course, I did have to add some little twinkles of light around the rainbow while I was at it, something to make it extra shimmery and glowy. And here are just a final few highlights on the clouds. And here is the final painting. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. I hope that this could be a little moment of inspiration or calm or quiet in your day, whether you picked up your own art supplies to create along with me or if you just needed some background noise. If you did like this video, I'd be so thrilled if you left a like or a comment or decided to subscribe. Thank you all again so much for being here with me today. As always, have courage, be kind, and always look for the light.